Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Glover. Let's give him another round of applause. That was great. Thank you very much. Now it is with pleasure and great honor to introduce Mrs. Kim Fleming. Kim Fleming currently serves as Vice Chair for Baird. She earned her bachelor's degree in economics from Northwestern University and holds several professional designations. She is a Chartered Financial Analyst, charter holder, a graduate and former board member of the Securities Industry Institute at the University of Pennsylvania, and she has completed the Center for Fiduciary Studies Certification program at the University of Pittsburgh. Prior to joining Baird, she was the chairman and CEO of Hefren-Tillotson. Mrs. Fleming also serves on the boards of the Bull Foundation, Dollar Link, the Duquesne Club, where she's the president, and the United Way of Southwestern Pennsylvania. Mrs. Fleming is a member of the CFA Institute, Pittsburgh Society of Financial Analysts, and Financial Planning Association, and has served on the NASD District Business Conduct Committee and on the Board of Governors of SIFMA. In March of 2017, she was awarded the Pittsburgh Business Times Lifetime Achievement Award, which honors the region's most influential businesswomen. In September of 2016, Mrs. Fleming was honored with the Roberto Clemente Seat 21 Award from the Pittsburgh Pirates for her community service. In May of 2016, she was honored with the History Makers Award in Business by the Heinz History Center for her community work. In October 2015, Mrs. Fleming was selected by the governor as a distinguished daughter of the Pennsylvania for extraordinary service and contributions to the Commonwealth. Mrs. Fleming and her husband Kirk reside in Wexford, PA, with their 3 dogs. They have 2 sons, Grant and Todd, who also work there, and 2 beautiful granddaughters, Claire and Brooke. Please welcome Mrs. Fleming.
Okay, now this will be test number 1. Can you see me? Stand back here. And I try to stand to the side. I would actually ask, can you hear me if I talk without a microphone?
Yes.
Okay, good. I've never been told that I can't be heard without a microphone. So, I'll stand over here now. Right. Adversity happens. And it happens to all of us. You have the phone call when someone calls you and says, your father had a stroke and fell, and it doesn't look good. You have that moment when you hear that a colleague of yours has been diagnosed with ALS, which is a life-threatening disease. And you have other moments in life, we all do, that bring things to a head. One of my most memorable moments was making the decision to merge Hefren-Tillotson with Baird. We announced that decision 3 years ago, knowing that it would have an impact on 260 people who I cared deeply about, but I felt like it was the right decision. These are times that we all have in life. And years ago, I'll put this down for a minute, you might recognize him. He's one of my heroes, which is Tigger, because I like his attitude. I worked with a coach, and my coach helped me to write a personal mission statement. And with that mission statement, my mission was to become, to motivate and empower and inspire others to learn the true enrichment of life, the true richness of life. And what I mean by that is learning to have a positive attitude. For me, relationships are probably the most important thing in my life. Money, richness of life. I work with finance. I know a lot of people with a lot of money who are really miserable, and I know a lot of people with very little money who live amazing lives. So I've learned a long time ago that richness of life really is not about money. So having a positive attitude, learning to have an attitude of gratitude, to be grateful for those things that come your way, when questions or those moments happen in your life, to learn how to deal with it constructively is so important. I think it's foundational for anyone that wants to have a rich life and that wants to learn to deal with adversity. And there are ways that you learn to deal with it that are actual steps. So personally, when adversity hits me, the first step is you have to acknowledge the situation and you have to accept the situation, because you can't change when someone has a stroke and things don't look good. So you have to acknowledge it and accept it. You know, once you've taken that step, and during that time, it's okay to grieve, and it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to have fear, or whatever emotions go along with that adversity. But then you have to move on. And so, for me, my next step is I have to take a deep breath, I pray a lot, and then I think about, how am I going to deal with this in a constructive way? You know, what things can I control? Because we can choose our attitude. We can choose how we respond to things. Years ago, I read a book called Your Erroneous Zones, and it basically said, you know, a lot of people will say, he makes me angry. And you can choose to let that be your attitude, to be the victim, or you can choose that you're not going to stay there because you have the choice to decide how you approach things. So you acknowledge and accept the situation, and then you decide how to deal with it. And then you start making a plan on how does that look? You know, what things can you do? And you implement the plan. And one of my work colleagues had a term when he was diagnosed with ALS, which is a terminal disease. It was onward. And so then you decide you're going onward. Your life's going to continue. So how do you take those things that you've dealt with and learn from them? So those 4 steps for me have helped me get through so many situations in life. And I think the more you learn to be constructive when adversity hits, the more you learn, you really learn the most in life when those bad times happen. So I think learning how do you deal with it? It doesn't have to be those 4 steps, learn your own, but don't stay stuck in the moment of anger. Don't stay stuck in the moment of fear. Learn to control things, because you do choose how you respond. The 3 situations I talked about, I'll just talk about how you use these in a real life situation. I worked with my father for 23 years. I was really fortunate to come back in 1987, join Hefren-Tillotson, and he passed away in 2010. He was 82 years old. He was in the office the morning that he had his stroke, and was actually in my office the morning he had his stroke, and kind of laughing about playing golf with my son and how my son had beat him, and I took a picture of him that morning, and then he went to go see a hearing doctor, and he fell going into the doctor's office, and because he had a stroke, he didn't use his hands to brace himself, and so I got a call saying, your father fell. One of my colleagues had taken him down to the doctor. Your father fell, and you need to get down here. So I went down, went to the hospital, but he never recovered. He never regained consciousness. You know, after working with him for 23 years, and I absolutely love my father. He was my best advocate, mentor, critic, you know, everything. It was hard to lose him, and he was beloved by everyone in our company. You know, he was 82 years old, still coming in, mostly doing mentoring, not running the company anymore. But I had to decide, how am I going to deal with this with 260 people looking at me for guidance on when they're mourning? So I remember telling people, it's okay to smile, it's okay to laugh. You don't have to look down when you see me. You know, we are going to move on, and that's what he would want. And so, you know, we dealt with that loss, we celebrated his life, and learning to do things constructive when that happens is one of my ways of dealing with it. So I put together Lessons from the Life of Willard Tillotson, and gave this to everyone at our company breakfast, which was about 2 months later. And this was on almost every person's desk for years. I think a lot of them still have it on their desk, because he was a wise, beloved man, and there was a lot to take away from that. But for me, this was comforting to create this. So that's situation number 1. 1 year later, my colleague Neil Alexander, and some of you may know the story of Neil. Neil was not even 50 years old. He was 46 years old. He was diagnosed with ALS. ALS is it's basically, there's no cure for ALS. You know that you are going to die. Neil lived for about 4 years. He grieved at first, but he didn't stay stuck in grief for long at all. Neil decided that he wanted to do something different. His quote was, "I want to leave ALS better than I found it," because when he was told he had ALS, the doctor basically said, "You have ALS, you need to figure out how you're going to live the rest of your life, because it's going to be a short life." Neil founded the Live Like Lou Foundation. Lou Gehrig had ALS, and so Neil was very inspired by the story of Lou Gehrig. So he founded the Live Like Lou Foundation, and at first he told me, "We're going to raise $50,000, and he had an event that he invited people to, and it was a fundraiser. And I said, "You're going to raise a lot more money than that." Today, he was diagnosed in 2011. Today, Live Like Lou Foundation has raised more than $8 million. There's a Live Like Lou Center for ALS Research at the University of Pittsburgh. And he just made a difference. People noticed how he handled it. He wanted to make sure that his kids knew that when you're hit with something like that, you can take control of it. You can do something constructive. His 2 children were young, and they are awesome today. So they think about their dad, they talk about their dad. They're not afraid to share the story, and the story was very well known. People around Pittsburgh just totally embraced it. Everything from lemonade stands to having big fundraisers, and finally having University of Pittsburgh give $1.5 million to open up the Live Like Lou Center, in addition to the other funds raised. Again, dealing with adversity, Neil was motivated. He really wanted to leave his kids something that they could reflect on and take forward. And he certainly, he just had all the qualities that you need when you're faced with adversity. Third situation, after Hefren-Tillotson was in Pittsburgh for almost 75 years, when we made the decision to merge with Baird. It was not a decision that was taken lightly. I love the company. I love my people that work there. I love our clients. We've been active in the community. But there were reasons, there were good reasons in 2022 when we made that decision that it made sense. And I really spent a lot of time getting to know Baird. I actually love Baird. The cultures are the same. It's an employee-owned firm. It gave us a solution for some things that we would face in the future. But it changed my role. It changed the role of a number of people that I really cared about. It was, transitions like that aren't easy, but I'm really happy to say that our advisors have stayed on board. We've only lost a couple of them, and their staffs have stayed on board, and I think people see now why that decision was the right decision for the future. But those aren't easy decisions when the people around you are looking at you saying, "Why did you change my life in a way that I really wasn't asking for?" But you do it because you have conviction that it's the right thing. And so there's a form of adversity when a relationship that you care about is looking at you not real happy with decisions you make. But thankfully, and I'll look to Landon's father, Brad Dishart, in the audience. Our people have stayed on. The collegial attitude and the culture, I think, are just as good. Maybe it's a little bit bigger, but it's a great place to be, great place to work. Actually, Baird was just voted as the number 13 place in the Fortune 100 companies as a best place to work this last week. But so you have to do things with conviction, even though you know there's adversity that goes with that. So I would conclude, and trying not to read my notes, but I want to make sure that I leave the messages. So adversity happens, and it happens to all of us. When it happens, choose to deal with it constructively. And by being constructive, you can motivate others to follow in your footsteps. Neil was one of the most motivating people to me in my life. Let adversity lead to positive change, and be grateful for the opportunity to deal with adversity, because it really teaches you some of life's best lessons. And then move onward and do it with faith that if you're doing it from the right place, things will work out. So thank you very much.